Hello everyone, welcome to Options with Doug, streaming live on Bookmap Discord and the Bookmap YouTube channel. Sorry about that, we're on the wrong slide. Again, everyone, hello, welcome to Options with Doug, streaming live on Monday and Wednesday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Bookmap Discord and the Bookmap YouTube channel. Before I get started, I need to go through the disclosures. General disclosure, all Bookmap limited materials, information, and presentations are for educational purposes only and should not be considered specific investment advice nor recommendations. Risk disclosure, trading futures, equities, and options involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Here's my contact information. The best way to get in touch with me is through Discord. My name on Discord is Doug P. Also at Bookmap Discord, there's an Options-Doug chat channel. You can post questions, comments, and content related to the topics of my presentation and the topics of the channel that I'll go through in just a moment. I'm also on X. My name there is at Doug Pless. Here are the key tenets to my approach to trading. I believe that options trades and market maker hedging activity are key drivers of price in many stocks and futures. That certainly applies to large cap tech stocks like the Magnificent Seven stocks, as well as the equity index futures like the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ 100. And we'll see plenty of examples of that today. And for the S&P 500, SPX is the underlying index, SPY is the ETF version of that index, and the ES futures contract is a derivative of SPX. And when traders buy and sell puts and calls in SPX and SPY, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with ES futures. And for the NASDAQ 100, NDX is the underlying index. QQQ is the much more liquid ETF version of that index. And the NQ futures contract is a derivative of NDX. And just like the S&P 500, when traders buy and sell puts and calls in NDX and QQQ, market makers take the opposite side of those trades and they hedge their delta exposure with NQ futures. The focus of my presentation today and the focus of the Options-Doug chat channel is options order flow, the impact of options markets on stocks and futures, and the influence of market maker hedging flow on price action. I have a two-step process for trading, and the first is planning, and I use positional analysis. I look at how traders and market makers are positioned in the options market and how those positions change from day to day to develop a thesis regarding the expected trading range and volatility for the day as well as a directional bias. And the second step in my process is execution. I look at real-time order flow in Bookmap and real-time market maker hedging flow in Spotgamma Hero to confirm my thesis. And for setups, and when I talk about setups today, I will be focusing on an underlying asset. Setups in that asset can be taken with futures contracts, shares of stock, or options, depending on the asset as well as the way you like to trade. Questions and comments are welcome, and I will be watching both the Options-Doug chat channel as well as the chat and YouTube for your questions and comments. Please feel free to post. I'll do my best to answer your questions. Here's my agenda for today, Wednesday, August 13th. First of all, I want to go over news items, economic data, events, and earnings for today as well as the rest of the week. Then I'll go through my positional analysis. Then I'll review some setups from earlier today, and there were some great setups, both in futures and in stocks. We'll take a look at those. Then we'll get to live market. And when I get to live market, if anyone has any stocks they want me to take a look at, please let me know, and I'll be glad to do that. All right, let's get started with news items. And I'm going to take a look at the S&P 500. This is the ES futures in Bookmap. And a nice downtrend today. All right, so let's start with news items. All right, so yesterday, of course, I'm sure everyone is aware that the CPI data came out 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Market really liked it. Not sure why, but the market really liked it. And the index has rallied to new highs. And it looks like a little bit of overhang today. All right. Also today, there have been a variety of Fed speakers. Tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, PPI data comes out. And then on Friday, retail sales at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Michigan consumer sentiment, and then also the options expiration. And we'll take a look at that right now. All right, so let's take a look at the options concentration for August. We'll go to the Spotgamma dashboard home screen, and let's zoom in on this. So what that chart is showing is market makers delta notional. This is options expiration, and options expiration on the horizontal axis. So delta notional on the vertical axis and by expiration date on the horizontal axis. And this is for the S&P 500 and NASDAQ Russell 2000. Orange bars are showing call delta notional or positive delta notional. Blue bars showing put delta notional or negative delta notional. And you can see this is the August expiration. Very call-dominated options expiration. And as those calls expire, setting up a potential, not necessarily guaranteed, but a potential for more consolidation or maybe a little bit of a pullback after options expiration. It certainly did not happen in July. So we'll see what happens in June. And by the way, this is the September options expiration. Normally, every 3 months, the quarterly options expirations are by far the largest. All right, so that's the options expiration coming up. All right, let's move on. Let's take a look at positional analysis now. Back to the S&P 500. Key levels in play. First of all, the ES upper daily expected move. And I do post those levels, expected moves for SPX, ES, and NQ. I've been posting all three every day in Discord. That's in the Options-Doug chat channel. And that is free for you as long as you want to take a look at the Options-Doug chat channel. All right, so upper daily expected move around that level, acting as a resistance. All right, so there were some SPY and SPX levels also in play for today. So let's take a look at those. So let's step back, take a look at a higher time frame. Let's go to SPX. I'm going to start with a 1 year, 1 day chart for SPX, again, the underlying index. And let's start with current price action or most recent price action. So here's the June options expiration. There was a little bit of a pullback into the June expiration, then the current rally resumed, breaking above the February expiration highs. And as I said, the rally just continued right through the July expiration. And we'll see what happens with the August expiration. So a week before last, there was a pretty steep pullback, and then the SPX continues to recover. So let's pick that up on a shorter time frame. Let's go to a 30-day 1 hour chart. So there's that pullback week before last. SPX found support around this 62 to 15 to 62.20 zone. Gapped up Monday. So this is last week, gapped up Monday. And then this week, on Monday, SPX continued in this uptrend channel, then broke out yesterday with the CPI data, broke out above 6,400, and now finding resistance. And this is we'll take a look at the levels right now. So finding resistance at first of all, the upper weekly expected move, shown with dashed purple lines, based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from last Friday. Those levels remain in place for the entire week. So earlier today, SPX did trade up above that level. Now, trading back down below. Then the dashed blue lines are showing the lower and upper daily expected move, also based on the options market, based on the closing price for SPX from yesterday afternoon. I do post those levels in Discord every day the day before. All right, so those are the SPX expected moves. I do calculate those independently from ES, and I post both in the Options-Doug chat channel and Bookmap Discord. All right, let's take a look at the Spotgamma levels on this chart. These are shown with the dark red lines. They're available to Spotgamma subscribers. They're available on a variety of trading platforms. And I'm going to go through the key daily levels. So first of all, 6,000 is the absolute gamma strike. That's the strike with largest absolute positive and negative gamma. Note the put wall has moved down to that level. And put walls move lower for SPX, SPY, NDX, and QQQ. So all four put walls move lower. And certainly out of play at 6,000. All right, so for SPX, next level up is the volatility trigger at 63.95. Then a Spotgamma's proprietary volatility and gamma flip level. Below that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is negative. In a negative gamma environment, market makers have to trade with price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to enhance or increase volatility. Above that level, market makers' position on the gamma curve is positive. In a positive gamma environment, market makers have to trade against price to hedge their delta exposure. That tends to subdue or decrease volatility. That is based on Spotgamma's older legacy model or total gamma open interest model. And that level did move up from yesterday. Same for SPY. The SPX and SPY volatility triggers moved higher. Then finally, the call wall is back up at 6,500. On Monday, the last time we met, it was on at 6,400. Now it has moved back to 6,500. And that is the next key level up above. And if SPX starts to move higher again, that is certainly the level that would be the next primary target. All right, let's wrap up our view of SPX with a 1-minute chart so we can get the closest look. Current price action. So here's this uptrend channel. Let's zoom in on this just a little bit. Price action yesterday after CPI data. Gap up, a little bit of chop, and then a rally into the close. And note where SPX so far is finding support today at the close from yesterday. So here this is showing SPX breaking out above the upper weekly and daily expected moves, now trading back down below. And also this combo level, 64.78, that's a combo 3 level, that combines SPX and SPY gamma weighted open interest into one level in terms of an SPX price in this case. All right, so keys for today. SPX traded up above the upper weekly and daily expected moves, now trading back down below and finding support at the closing price from yesterday. All right, let's take a look at the SPY chart. Then we'll get back to Bookmap. I like to isolate all these levels, so SPX and SPY levels. So let's go to SPY. So rally yesterday continued. That was in the dark shaded portion yesterday and continued overnight. Let's zoom in on this. And then made this very nice peak. This was a very nice short setup. More about that in just a minute when we get back to ES. Very nice short setup just above the SPY 646 level. SPY did trade up above the 645 call wall and now trading down below. All right, for SPY, the call wall did shift higher. And as I mentioned before, the volatility trigger shifted higher, put wall lower. And also for SPY, the absolute gamma strike shifted higher, And that's the case for SPY, NDX, QQQ, RUT, and IWM. Absolute gamma strikes all shifted higher. All right, back to Bookmap now. So let's take a look at some of these levels on the Bookmap chart. So again, here's that combo level, lines up with the ES 6500 level. ES upper daily expected move just below that. Again, I do calculate that separately or independently from the SPX upper daily expected move since it closes at a different time. All right, here's that SPY call wall. And then a key level down below here, the 6450 large gamma 2 level. And that was noted as support in the Spotgamma AM Founders Note. And price has been chopping up and down around that level. And again, finding support right around the closing price, SPX closing price for yesterday. All right, note there is a difference in price between ES and SPX. And today it's right around 22 points. So I'm showing the 6450 level for SPX at ES 6472. There's that, again, 22 point offset. And I do post those index relationships that I use every day in Discord. And we'll talk about this very nice short setup in just a couple of minutes. All right, let's take a look at NASDAQ. This is the NQ futures and Bookmap. Very similar price chart. Reversal just after the open. So let's take a look at the underlying index components before we get to this chart. Let's start with QQQ. Zoom in, so just like yesterday, big rally yesterday, and then the price action continued overnight and then reversed just after the cash open. Spotgamma levels, and then also this round number level around the QQQ 583 level, acting as resistance. Key levels in play. Main level is the 580 level. That is the absolute gamma strike as well as the call wall. And for QQQ, the volatility trigger and absolute gamma strike shifted higher, put wall shifted lower. So there's that, again, call wall, absolute gamma strike. Price is chopping up and down around that level. And then another key level is the volatility trigger at 579, acting as support. So nice drop down from 583 down close to 579, and then some consolidation, potential recovery. All right, so that's QQQ. And the pattern that we're looking at today, we'll see this over and over again, a brief bullish opening drive, reversal lower, call peak pattern, reversal lower, and now consolidation, potential recovery. All right, let's take a look at NDX. Zoom in, focus on the levels. All right, so several levels in play. And remember the QQQ volatility trigger really acting as support just down below this 23,800 level. That's a large gamma 3 level. Then here's a combo level, combo 1 level, most important combo level. All right, that's NDX. Now back to Bookmap. So just like the ES, I have all these levels shown on my chart. There's a reversal right around the QQQ 583 level. There's the key QQQ 580, absolute gamma strike call wall. And then the QQQ 479 volatility trigger acting as support. All right, so again, pattern. Bullish up move, brief opening drive, call peak reversal, then consolidation, making so far a double bottom at the QQQ 479. I'm sorry, 579. I need to change that label. That's a typo there. That'll update in just a minute. All right, let's wrap up our position analysis by taking a look at gamma. So I'm going to, just one note, the older version of gamma notional at the beginning of the day, was quite positive for all index components, SPX, SPY, NDX, QQQ, RUT, IWM, and looking at this newer synthetic open interest based model of gamma. This is showing the red shading, negative gamma, showing SPX in a zone of negative gamma with positive gamma above and below. So you can equate gamma with volatility. So looking for volatility in this red shading, more rapid trending type price action, although the stability index is quite high. But nevertheless, SPX trading in this zone of negative gamma. Let's zoom in just a little bit. Let's take a look at this strike right here. All right, so that is at SPX 6435, and that is showing as a 99 percentile strike. So the playbook that has worked quite well in recent weeks is Zero-DTE options traders will drive price right toward the largest 99 percentile strike on the board. So that's at 64.35. So that would be right around ES 64.57 if the playbook continues today. So we'll keep an eye on that. And if that were to happen, then SPX would have to break down below the last closing price from yesterday. All right, so in this zone of negative gamma, we're looking for more rapid price action, generally or typically, with some support and maybe an end-of-day target at 64.35. So that depends on what options traders are doing. All right, so speaking of options traders, let's move on and take a look at some setups and then current price action. All right, so this is the hero signal. This is available to Spotgamma subscribers. And what this chart is showing, this is the S&P 500 index hero signal. So this is showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the S&P 500 index components. That's SPX, SPY, ES, and XSP. The white line is price, and the purple line is the hero signal. A rising purple line indicates traders are taking positive delta options positions. They are buying calls and or selling puts. So the direction of the line always indicates options delta. So positive delta options positions would be either buying a call or selling a put. So a rising line, again, indicates traders are buying calls and or selling puts. We'll separate out the lines, show calls and puts independently in just a minute. All right, so then a falling hero signal indicates traders are taking negative delta options positions. They're buying puts and or selling calls. All right, let's zoom in on this a little bit. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and separate out puts and calls. And I hope for those of you who are familiar with what I talk about can recognize this beautiful peak pattern here, right around 950. Full alert came in, signals significant options activity, and often a potential reversal in hedging flow from positive delta to negative delta, and that gave you a few minutes warning, maybe 4 or 5 minutes warning, and then the hero signal reverse lower, setting up that beautiful short, and we'll take a look at that in Bookmap in just a minute. All right, let's separate out puts and calls now, and I'm going to have to jump back. All right, so let's take a closer look at this in the morning. So the orange line is showing calls, the blue line showing puts. So this shows for maybe just 2 or 3 minutes, traders were selling puts. That's positive delta. They took the foot off the gas. Right after 950, they started buying puts. Traders were buying calls, shown by the rising orange line. Flow alert comes in. Call peak, very reliable, bearish reversal pattern. That is what I've been looking for the last couple of weeks as markets have continued to make new highs. So typical pattern, bullish opening drive, call peak, reversal. I've talked about this many times. You can play this either way. And we'll see there were many good short setups today, both in the indexes and stocks. So this was very clean, very nice setup. Call peak pattern, flow alert, call peak pattern. Traders buying puts, start selling calls. Bearish momentum, both the blue line and the orange line moving in the same direction. So in this case, traders were selling calls, buying puts, price reverses lower. All right, let's take a look at that in Bookmap. Matt, thank you very much for your kind words. All right, let's go to Bookmap now. Let's go to ES. Let's zoom in on this. So we'll take a look at this setup in Bookmap. So we already know we have a call peak pattern. And here's that brief bullish opening drive. 930 cash open. And the first clue in Bookmap is this falling blue line showing iceberg orders. And I've shown that's the stops and icebergs subchart indicator. And then I've also got the on-chart indicators here showing the individual events. Large traders fading that move higher with iceberg orders. A little bit of a stop run up to the upper daily expected move and just a few points above. Stop run, aggressive buyers. Buyers are exhausted. That's shown by the smaller green volume dots. So the volume dots show market buy minus sell. Green dots indicate more buyers than sellers. Magenta dots more sellers than buyers. And then this is a very angry looking setup to me. All magenta volume dots. Green volume dots, buyers are exhausted. Sellers come in at a level you expect to act as resistance, the upper daily expected move. and price reverses lower as traders start selling calls, buying puts, aggressive sellers come in. Large traders were fading that move with iceberg orders, so they were selling on the way up, and price reverses lower. Very clear, clean, bearish setup. All right, so the pattern again we're looking at today. Brief bullish opening drive, call peak reversal, then consolidation, maybe an attempt to recover. So I can see more green volume dots starting to come in now. So far it looks like that previous close for SPX holding a support. But again, remember, we've got that large positive gamma, 99 percentile, down below, and that would be at ES 6457. All right, let's take a look at NASDAQ. Similar price action. And before I move on to NASDAQ Hero, let's take a look at the other signal, hero signal available for the S&P 500, and that is the S&P 500 equity signal. So what this chart is showing is options trades and market maker hedging activity for all 500 stocks in the S&P 500. And this is kind of a complementary pattern to the hero signal for the S&P 500. And I've seen this many times before. Bullish opening drive, and instead of reversing lower, the call signal just flattens out for S&P equities. So that equity signal that had been driving price higher shuts off. So they take the foot off the gas. They start buying puts. And remember, again, the S&P 500 index signal was more clear, very nice call peak reversal pattern. So we have the call buyers and the equities taking the foot off the gas. And then, again, the index signal reversing lower, setting up a very nice short. So the two patterns work together. I've seen that happen many times. All right, let's move on to NASDAQ. So just like the S&P 500, there are two hero signals that we can take a look at. Let's zoom in on this just a little bit. So a couple things to note here. I don't know, that little vertical line, that vertical line comes in right at the open. So I'll just move that to the left a little bit. All right, so for the open, in the NASDAQ components, index components, NDX and QQQ, traders were buying puts from the open. Call line was pretty flat. Few call buyers came in, and we'll see the cause of that in just a few minutes. And then traders start selling calls. So at this point, 9:55, they're buying puts and selling calls in the index. All right, so the other signal that we can take a look at for the S&P for the NASDAQ is the Mag 7 signal. And that's showing options trades and market maker hedging activity for the stocks known as the Magnificent Seven: Apple, Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft, NVIDIA, Tesla. All right, so take a note of this line right here from 940 to 950 or so, and we'll track that down in some of the Mag 7 stocks. And I'll tell you right now, one of them was Tesla. All right, then the call signal, the call peak. Traders buy puts, sell calls. This was not quite as clear and clean as the S&P 500, but still set up a nice short in NASDAQ. Trend break. Price dropped lower, right down to this QQQ 579 volatility trigger. So far, NASDAQ has made a double bottom and now consolidating. Looks like trading back up just above the 580 absolute gamma strike, consolidating, trying to recover. And just like the ES, it looks like some more green volume dots are coming in. All right, any questions about the indexes? Brief opening drive, call peak pattern, reversal, consolidation. Well, let's take a look at some stocks. First stock I want to take a look at is Amazon. And remember, I mentioned that brief opening drive, call peak. One stock responsible, Amazon. Let's take a look and see what options traders are doing. Go to Amazon. So there's a bullish opening drive in Amazon. Traders aggressively buying calls. Full alert signal significant options activity, get your attention. And then call buyers take the foot off the gas and Amazon consolidates. Now it looks like some call buyers have come back in, as well as put sellers shown by the rising blue line. And Amazon looks like came back up to the previous high and now trading just a little bit below that. All right, back to Bookmap. All right, so there's that original bullish opening drive. A lot of green volume dots, aggressive buyers. And then they can't quite make it to those limit sell orders at 225. All right, so Amazon struggling to make it above that level. All right, next stock I want to take a look at is NVIDIA. Let's see what options traders are doing. Here's NVIDIA. All right, so from the open in NVIDIA, traders were buying puts. That's not a real sharp, steep line, but the normal aggressive call buyers not nowhere to be found. So this is just kind of a grind lower for NVIDIA. Full alert comes in just before this steeper drop. And that was right around 10:05, 10 o'clock, 10:05. All right, so right around 11:20, the call sellers take the foot off the gas. Now some call buyers coming in and NVIDIA trying to recover. Let's go to Bookmap. All right, so the heat map in Bookmap shows a history of limit orders in the Euro book. This is very typical for stock. These limit orders come in at the cash open. These are limit sell orders above price. Absorption at that level. Price versus lower. You can see the magenta volume dots coming in now. Cumulative volume delta falling. These were limit buy orders at 180. Looks like they were consumed. Now remember, the call buyers have come in and NVIDIA has recovered up to VWAP. All right, next stock, Tesla. All right, Tesla was had a very brief bullish opening drive. So let's see what options traders are doing. So remember that bullish opening drive that was shown on the S&P 500 equities and Mag 7 signal. There's one of the stocks responsible for it. And Tesla made a very nice couple of call peak patterns, setting up shorts. Now right around 11:15, call buyers came back in and Tesla trying to recover. And note that was right around the 340 key gamma strike. So let's zoom in on this just a little bit. So remember, I've mentioned this many times. A couple ways to play this trade. Stock trades. You can buy the bullish opening drive or take the reversal at the call peaks. Buy a put spread, sell a call spread, sells shares of stock. All ways to play that. All right, back to Bookmap. And on the bullish opening drive, there was one deeper pullback, right, just to VWAP. And now price consolidating right around 340. Right back to Hero. And again, 340 is the key gamma strike. Let's take a look at AMD. All right, so far, hope everyone is seeing the pattern here. Brief bullish opening drive, then a reversal lower. We'll see a couple of exceptions to that in just a couple of minutes. All right, so here's AMD. More prolonged opening drive. Full alert comes in just after the open. Almost right at the open, get your attention. Bullish opening drive. AMD trading above the 180 call wall, which acted as support later on today. So that was a call wall breach. Traders long calls, market makers are short calls. As price moves higher, market makers' position becomes more negative. As the delta increases, becomes more negative, market makers have to continue to buy stock to hedge their delta exposure with that call wall breach. And as traders buy calls, not a sharp peak, but a very nice short setup. Trend break, reversal lower. Setting up the short. So let's go to Bookmap. Go to AMD. So remember, this was a little bit more prolonged bullish opening drive. A couple of deeper pullbacks. This one right to VWAP. Then the trend break reversal as traders stopped buying calls and started selling calls. Down to the 180 level. V-shaped reversal. Aggressive buyers start to come in, shown by the green volume dots. And AMD rallies back up to 185. And now consolidating. Right back to Hero. So again, 180 call wall acting as support with a nice V-shaped recovery. Very nice linear price action here in AMD. All right, next stock. Let's take a look at Circle. Circle has been in the news, reported earnings, and then I believe yesterday announced a stock offering. So I did post a setup, short setup in this in Circle yesterday. Very nice reversal after a big rally. So at the beginning of the day, I post my watch list for stocks that I'm watching for the day. At the beginning of the day yesterday, it was at the top of the list. At the end of the day, it was at the bottom of the list with a very nice reversal. And today there was a bullish opening drive and a very nice call peak reversal. And by the way, Circle may be a little bit difficult to short. So in TradeStation, it's hard to borrow, so you would have to locate shares. And let me check Thinkorswim, the two. Give me just a moment. All right, so Circle is hard to borrow and Thinkorswim as well. All right, but anyway, there was a call peak pattern. Of course, you could always buy a put, sell a call spread, buy a put spread. So let's go take a look at Bookmap. Go to Circle. Drop at the open. Aggressive buyers come in. Price breaks above VWAP. Then there's that call peak reversal. Down to 155. And if Circle continues to move lower, the liquidity at 150 would be the next stop, next price target. And note again, yesterday, Circle did trade lower after reporting earnings and a big gap up, big move up before the cash open, and then drop lower after the close, I think, with the announcement of the stock offering. And 160 is the hedge wall, 150 put wall. So again, 150 would be the next target down below. So Circle has already traded through 160. All right, next stock, Oklo. Oklo's been in the news. So Oklo, along with I think 8 other nuclear stocks, has been tasked with building a nuclear reactor by the administration by 2026. I think they want to get something going, avoid the red tape. So Oklo has been in the news and set up a very nice short today. So let's take a look at that. Let's see what options traders are doing. Let's go to Oklo. Another nice call peak pattern. And that happened in the first 4 or 5 minutes. Hello, Mark. Welcome. Glad you're here. Call peak pattern. And it looks like in this case, the call sellers maybe were following price lower. Price traded down to the 80 call wall, key gamma strike, then broke down below that level, acting as resistance. All right, back to Bookmap. All right, so here's the 80 level. I didn't have time to add price lines. Add this to my price line spreadsheet. So here's the 80 level. Oops. Acting as resistance and another entry point for a short, pullback entry for a short. And next level down below, the 75 level, would be the next price target if price continues lower. All right, any questions? Anyone have any stocks they want me to take a look at? All right, let's get back to the indexes. Let's start with the S&P 500. All right, so it looks like that All right, so it looks like the S&P 500 trying to recover. Again, remember I noted that there were more green volume dots coming in. aggressive buyers. SPX closing price from yesterday still holding as support. Bulldog, welcome, glad you're here. Bulldog says those call peak patterns are easy to see after the fact. How do you interpret those when they're happening and undeveloped? So the steeper the pattern, the better. So what I look for, let's go take a look, see if we can find one that, well, let's just go to the S&P 500. And I talked about this in depth. So back to the S&P 500. All right, so let's take a look at everything happening here. So I have puts and calls separated out. So I already know before this call peak a couple of things. Put sellers quickly took the foot off the gas. And we can zoom in so this is all we see. All right, so this is going to 954. So at 954.55, I know put sellers have already taken the foot off the gas. Flow alert comes in, and at this time of day, in this part of the move, I'm looking at that as a potential reversal signal, a potential reversal in hedging flow from positive delta to negative delta. There's the call peak. Hero signal starts to move lower. So at this point, the call line is starting to move lower. The blue line is starting to move lower. So I see potential bearish momentum setting up when both the orange line and blue line move down in the same direction. So I'm looking at this on one screen. Now let's go to Bookmap. Let's zoom in. And we'll talk about what we're seeing in Bookmap. And I thought this was, of all the instruments that I've talked about today, I thought this was by far the cleanest, easiest to read setup. So what do we know here? Potential resistance at the upper daily expected move. Large traders fading this move with iceberg orders. Aggressive sellers start to come in. So the call peak is formed. Bearish momentum forming in the hero signal. Aggressive sellers come in. Large traders have already been selling with iceberg orders. Cumulative volume delta starts to drop. The buy stop orders that have fueled the move higher, that's shown by the yellow line, starting to flatten out. And price moves lower at a level that I expect to act as resistance. So for a conservative trade, there's your entry right there. A pullback below the upper daily expected move, then a retest of that level. And I would say by then, almost 10 o'clock, everything was confirmed for a bearish setup. So I'm looking at Bulldog, I'm looking at Bookmap and Hero, and you can look at your trading platform as well and see any potential clues you have in candlestick patterns or MACD or whatever you use on your trading platform if you're not trading directly on Bookmap. All right, Bulldog, does that answer your question? All right, let's take a look. See what's happening in the index now. All right, welcome. All right, does anyone have any stocks they want me to take a look at? Questions, comments? All right, let's go back to Hero. We on the index. All right, so some call buyers started to come in right around 145. Check the equity signal. Some call buyers, put sellers. Let's check trace. All right, so that large gamma strike at 64.35 has diminished pretty substantially. So that would no longer be a target. But SPX still firmly a negative gamma, and the hero signal is moving higher. And sorry, you can't see that with a red arrow. Hero signal moving higher. And let's check, first of all, delta pressure. So we know we're in negative gamma. SPX is negative gamma, not we, SPX. So this is showing selling pressure down below, buying support above. Again, that's typical of negative gamma. Let's check charm pressure. All right, so what this is showing is selling pressure, buying support due to time decay. And charm can often show pinning targets. And for pinning targets, what we would look for is blue buying support below, selling pressure above. And that's showing that most likely target at 64.30, just below this 64.35 strike. So the options traders are going to have to start aggressively taking negative delta options positions pretty soon here. I'm going to shift to the total signal. Go back. Actually, one other thing I want to take a look at. Let's see what Zero-DTE traders are doing today. All right, so the teal line is showing Zero-DTE trades. Those are trades. Options expire at the end of the day. And the purple signal is showing all expirations. That would be today, tomorrow, Friday, next week, next month. So to me, it looks like the all trades, all expirations, a little bit more bearish than the Zero-DTE trades. And Mark asked, do you believe that Friday will see a dramatic impact on markets with options expiration on Friday? You never know. There's a potential. I will tell you that Brent, the founder of Spotgamma, just did an options OPEX monthly. Looks like it's over now. That's on the Spotgamma YouTube channel. I do plan to watch that later on today. I didn't have time. I watched a little bit of the start of it. But I think Brent would be in a better position to answer that question. So I suggest it may actually still be going on. So take a look at that. And again, that is on the Spotgamma YouTube channel. All right, let's wrap this up. Go to Bookmap. All right, so ES trying to recover. Matt says, need to see S&P buyers step in here if we are moving higher, it seems. Yeah, so it looks like to me that starting just before 1. Now I'm seeing more green volume dots. Some aggressive buyers starting to come in. And again, remember this was the SPX, right around here, the SPX. Closing price from yesterday, acting as support. Zoom in on this a little bit. So you can see cumulative volume delta. When I zoom in, you can see cumulative volume delta starting to rise. Whoops. Shown by the magenta line there. Now price up to VWAP. Let's see what options traders are doing. All right, so in the index signal, the hero signal continues to rise. Equity signal now turning over a little bit, maybe some resistance at VWAP. Go back to gamma. So I would say right now a potential end of day target. Not really apparent. One last check of NASDAQ. All right, so NASDAQ turning lower now. Some sellers coming back in. Let's check the NASDAQ signal. Don't know if that's a pullback or a move lower. Mag 7. All right, so the S&P 500 index signal now leading the way, turning higher. So that's turning higher first before all the other index hero signals. All right, back to Bookmap. All right, everyone, my time is up. I want to thank you very much for watching. Thanks for your questions and comments. Remember, options expiration on Friday. And I will see you on Monday. Have a great afternoon, and I will see you on Monday. Thanks again. Bye.